What's up, guys? Dirk here from Intelligent Cryptocurrency. It is Sunday, it is the 22nd of November, and I just wanted to give another little update here about what's happening with the charts. We're going to go into a bit more depth about Bitcoin dominance and altcoins, alt season, at which point can we expect alts to start moving higher, because we've already seen a little bit more of this. We're also going to talk about the Bitcoin on exchanges, which has been declining. And I just want to look at all of this because there's a lot happening. We're moving into exciting times here. Bitcoin is still trading at $18,500. And there still isn't too much excitement, but we are starting to see, talks on traditional media on CNBC where they're talking about Bitcoin going higher. And I don't know if that's a good thing, right? I don't know if it's a good thing that the media are starting to push this. In the short term, probably, because it's going to get more people involved. But in the longer term, the more people that start talking about it and the more it gets shilled on media and social media and everyone gets into it, that could be a warning sign that, hey, we're approaching some territory where, it might get a bit dangerous to actually get in and you might be thinking about getting out. But I don't think that is the case just yet. I think we are in the early stages, and any exposure and continued exposure on media and social media, I think is going to help really get us into that next phase of the bull market, the real parabolic phase where we start seeing altcoins go absolutely crazy. So let's just dive straight into it. You can see over here on the chart, Bitcoin is still at $18,500, and it has been at these levels for a long time. You can see over here, we pretty much ran from 10K to almost 19K without any sort of real correction. So this is a daily chart. We're very, very, very close to the all-time high, that 19,666. I mean, if we zoom in over here, we actually hit, what was the high we've hit so far? 18,977. So, we're literally about $700 off from the all-time high from 2017. Now, you can see I have this big red arrow because that is what I shared in the last video, where I think there might be a possibility where we overshoot the all-time high in the next few weeks and actually reach maybe the top of this channel somewhere, between 22 and maybe even as high as 28,000. This point would be approximately $24,000. I think that is a possibility. If we're setting it to the weekly chart, let's get rid of this big red arrow. You can see there's still a very strong upwards momentum behind it, but once it peaks, it can reverse the week after just as well. You can see over here in 2017 we had this big green candle towards the end of the move up, and then when it was done, there was no kind of spike high like we saw in 2019, which was more of a warning. When you see a candle like this where it went up all the way in the week and it pulled back and it closed like this, that was more of a warning that maybe something was going to be topping off. But here, like if this were to be the last one, we could drop right back down again also next week. So we're in this territory now at 18,500. Personally, I do expect it to at least touch the all-time high in 19,666, but I actually do think it might even set a slightly higher high before it is done. And one of the reasons here also is that the Bitcoin levels on exchanges are significantly declining. In other words, there is a massive shortfall of Bitcoin available to purchase right now. And you can see over here, so this is a chart from Glassnode, and these are the different exchanges and their balances on the exchanges, right? So Coincheck, Poloniex, HitBTC, Gemini, etc., etc. And you can see over here, preceding the huge run up in Bitcoin in 2017 was this period of declining availability of Bitcoin on exchanges. That means the accumulation has been happening. The sellers aren't selling anymore. People have bought, they're holding. And once it gets to that point, you can see then we had this big run up. And obviously then the supply started increasing, because as the price goes up, well, there'll be more people who are in profit and who start to move their Bitcoin to exchanges and start selling their Bitcoin. And this is something that we saw in 2017, where we were talking about, it would be so nice to have institutions coming on board, and they're coming, and Wall Street is coming, and all that stuff. And that didn't really happen in 2017, but now we're here in 2020. That is happening, and we're seeing the balance on exchanges starting to diminish. So on the one hand, we have this parabolic run where it went from 10K to 18K, and we're nearing the previous all-time high. And that could be reasons for, you know, a potential double top or a correction or some sort of, you know, pause in this move up, which is what we've seen in 2017. We saw it in 2019, but the fundamentals are different. Okay, we're still not seeing the crazy FOMO that we saw in 2017 near any sort of peaks. We are starting to see more of it on the media. So you can see on CNBC, they're talking about it. Bitcoin is the scarcest asset in the world based on stock to flow measure. So they're starting to talk about this on mainstream media. You can see over here, the BlackRock CIO, fixed income Rick Reader, talking about Bitcoin replacing gold on CNBC. So we're starting to see a change in narrative, a change in sentiment here, where there's really a lot of positive talk. And it seems like there's almost just this campaign on media to be able to start pushing this higher and, you know, starting to get the world's attention. And this is what we saw in 2017 also. It just takes a long time at sustained levels where Bitcoin just has to hold the price or keep going higher over a period of months for people to really start to get interested and really start that next bull run. Because once it does, for example, what we saw in 2019, and it has a short run in a few months, and then it fizzles back out again, basically there's not enough momentum for people to get interested again, and they're basically, well, just like, well, you know, Bitcoin is just dumping again, it's nothing new. But once it gets past that level and it gets to that point where they're like, yeah, it's probably just gonna drop again, but then it doesn't, and it keeps on going, and it keeps on going, and then people start to think, you know, well, maybe I should start a buy, and it keeps on going, and it keeps on going, and at some point, they're going to be like, okay, now I'm stepping back in again. And that's when enough people start to think it. And that's when we get that parabolic euphoria mania phase of the bull market, which, by the way, we are still completely on track for, I believe, for 2021, based on the previous halving cycles and the 4-year cycle that we have. So we are still just about 6 months after the previous halving. You know, we still have another 6 to 12 months to go based on previous cycles for this to really reach that peak euphoria. So there is a good chance that this continues. Now, I had a question recently about Bitcoin dominance. What is Bitcoin dominance versus altcoins? And very simply explained, Bitcoin dominance is basically the amount of market share, market cap that Bitcoin has compared to all the other cryptocurrencies of the total market cap. So as you can see, we have a market cap of $544 billion, and the market cap of Bitcoin is $342 billion. So it's basically what percentage of the total market cap does a Bitcoin have. That is the dominance. And when Bitcoin has more dominance, it's basically showing what's happening now. It's basically Bitcoin is getting all the attention. People might even be selling off altcoins to buy more Bitcoin because Bitcoin is starting to make those moves. But there's this relationship and it goes in cycles. So sometimes Bitcoin gets the attention, and then at other times the altcoins get the attention, and money flows from Bitcoin into altcoins because there's more ROI to be made in altcoins. And this is a chart of the Bitcoin dominance you can see. So for the longest period before 2016, Bitcoin had a dominance of in the 90%. And this was simply because there weren't that many altcoins, cryptocurrency wasn't very popular, and so on and so forth. And as altcoins started becoming more and more popular, and we had the 2016, 2017 ICO projects starting to build on Ethereum, and there were hundreds, thousands of them actually. Then we started to see Bitcoin lose market share because obviously there's so many more different currencies or cryptos that also have market share. So it started to dilute. And you can see the more altcoins that came around, but also the more attention that was focused on altcoins, the less Bitcoin had a dominance. Then pretty much from January 2018, Bitcoin regained that dominance, it dropped back off, and now recently for the last several weeks, as you know, because Bitcoin has pumped so much, it has regained that dominance. But I think at some point, alt season is going to follow again. So basically, once Bitcoin has pumped enough and it's moved high enough, my theory behind this is basically that Bitcoin has moved so high that the potential upside for Bitcoin becomes far less interesting from an ROI perspective, and the potential downside becomes higher. So, okay, instead of Bitcoin being able to do a 10x, maybe now it becomes a 3x or a 2x, right? Versus altcoins, which are so low in market cap that if you were to take profits from your Bitcoin and move them into altcoins, well, then there's potential for a 10x, 20x, 30x in that altcoin if that altcoin moves higher, and then you can sell that altcoin and move it back into Bitcoin. Now, that being said, one final little word about how to take profits with cryptocurrencies. And there's basically two ways to do it. There are some people whose only goal is to acquire as much Bitcoin as possible because they believe Bitcoin is going to be the future reserve currency, and they don't care too much in the short term what Bitcoin is worth in US dollar amounts. Their goal is just to accumulate as much as possible, 10, 20, 100,000 Bitcoin, whatever that possibility is. So what those people are doing is they are looking for ways to increase their Bitcoin holdings through trading. And this can be through trading with Bitcoin moving in and out of fiat or stable coins. For example, if Bitcoin goes to 20K, you step into stablecoin, it drops back to 14K, you can buy back, you can increase your Bitcoin holdings that way. Another way to do it is you could also just, at some point, like for example now, let's say Bitcoin is at $18,500, if you believe that altcoins are now about to start moving, then you could take profits from your Bitcoin, move them into altcoins, wait for those altcoins to move higher, and then sell it back to Bitcoin, which means you would increase your Bitcoin holdings. Now, if you're doing that, keep in mind that even if you're increasing your Bitcoins, if the US dollar price of Bitcoin drops, well then your obvious net worth in Bitcoin drops too, but you're increasing your overall amount. That's why I say it depends on your strategy, because if you believe in Bitcoin for the long term and you just want to accumulate as much as possible, you're not going to care if Bitcoin drops back to 10K for, another year, because you think in the long run it's going to be worth 50, 100, 200K. Now, the other option is to be able to just count everything in fiat, in US dollars or euros or pounds or whatever your fiat currency is, because that is ultimately still the currency that we're using today. And if your goal is to accumulate more fiat so you can use it for other investments, maybe you want to buy real estate or precious metals, maybe you just want to, increase your retirement account with fiat money, whatever that case is, then all that matters is not necessarily your Bitcoin profits or how much Bitcoin you have, but how much your entire cryptocurrency portfolio is worth if you were to cash it out to fiat or stable coins. So what this means is if you were to put in $10,000, all that you care about is that $10,000 becomes more. It doesn't matter how much altcoins you have or how much Bitcoin you have. It just matters that 10,000 becomes 20 or 50 or 100,000. And that can be done through Bitcoin or altcoins or trading Bitcoin for altcoins. But ultimately the figure or the metric that you want to look out for is fiat currency value. And like I said, again, it completely depends on you, what your strategy is. If you believe in Bitcoin for the long term, well then, you want to focus on accumulating as much Bitcoin as possible through trades or through altcoins, whatever that is. But the ultimate goal is get back to Bitcoin more than you have. And the other one is fiat currency, and that means buying and selling coins, whether that's Bitcoin or altcoins or whatever it is, as long as whatever you put in initially, that 10,000 you put in initially might go to 20 or 50 or 100. Try and maximize that cash out so that you have more money in the bank in fiat currency than you started out with. At this point, we're trading at $18,500. Like I said, we've still got about 8 days left of this month, but I think it is going to be the highest monthly close for Bitcoin ever in the history of Bitcoin. And then we might see another push higher in December, which is completely possible, I think, where we go above the all-time high. So we'll have to wait and see. I think altcoins are getting close to starting a big altcoin pump. We saw it yesterday already. Over the weekend, we saw a bit of movement in altcoins, and it goes fast. It goes 10, 15, 20% in a day. This is what happens during alt season. Altcoins tend to pump very, very hard once it starts moving, but I don't know if it started just yet. It could have, but we might still have a few more weeks. If Bitcoin is still going to move higher for another few weeks, then altcoins probably aren't going to start moving just yet. But we're getting to a point where, within the next few weeks, I think we can start seeing altcoins move significantly higher if previous cycles and patterns and the history between Bitcoin and altcoins repeats in any way. Obviously, no guarantee. I'm not a financial advisor. Can't predict the future. But based on my experience here, I think we're going to get an altcoin run. So there's always still a possibility of a bit of a sell-off in alt if we do get that final exhaustion with Bitcoin. If Bitcoin pumps to 22, 24, 25K, we might still see altcoins drop a little bit first, but I think we're getting closer to a point where altcoins are going to start having a real alt season for a few weeks and move significantly higher. So guys, if you enjoyed this update, please smash the like button, subscribe to the channel below if you haven't already done so. Leave a comment with your thoughts. What do you think is going to happen? Are we going to continue higher? Are we going to get a bull run? Are we going to get an alt season? Or, is this it? And are we going to top out and fizzle out once again? I'd love to hear what you're thinking. The more sentiment we get and the more people's opinions, then the easier it becomes to actually make a decision of where we're going. So leave a comment below, subscribe, like, share, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.